So I want to tell you a story that isn't that well known in cricket, but it's about a man called Adrian Shankar. This was a person who played a lot of good cricket when he was young, and he went on to play at university level as well. And then he sort of disappeared away and didn't quite make it to the professional part of English cricket. Then a few years go by, and there is a change in the regulations of English cricket, and the county teams are encouraged to hire younger players. Adrian Shankar turns back up. And he said, I'm one of these younger players. And not only that, I've been playing cricket in Sri Lanka for ages, and look how good I am. Look at my stats. You should give me a go. So Lancashire have a look at him. And it doesn't really go well. He's not a fit. They look at him in the nets. They're not sure that they think that much of him. So he ends up at Worcestershire, where he actually plays a game. He plays that game at, let's just write this place down. Lords. And so that game doesn't go particularly well for Adrian Shankar, and people start to talk about him a lot more. And one of the people who starts to talk about him is English captain, although he wasn't quite at that stage, Alistair Cook, who says, wait a minute, I remember this guy. He used to be older than me, and now he's younger than me. Scott Oliver and George Dobell have covered this story many times before. If you want to go and find it, there's plenty to have a look at. But essentially, there was a great hoodwinking involved here, and it got Adrian Shankar to Lords to play a top-level professional game. Well done to him. So it's important to know that at all levels of cricket, at all times, there's quite often someone not saying exactly how old they are for many different reasons.
Ross Taylor couldn't see at night or when the clouds were in. Eventually, he had to see an eye specialist who would fix his eyesight. In the 2 years before the change, he still averaged more than 50 in international cricket. The top level of batting talent can basically see in the dark. That is who we are talking about in our new book, The Art of Batting. Head over and order your copy today.
Of course, this video is mostly about Vaibhav Suryavanshi, except it's not. It's really about the fact that I put up like a short video about him, talking about the innings, and then I received so many letters from so many different people saying that is not his real age, despite the fact that I think I might have even questioned his age at the time. Now, it's very important that you all know this. There is a band called Tism, and they sing a song, if you're not famous at 14, you're finished. So at the very least, Vaibhav has made them very happy. But I'm not all that interested in underage cricket. I don't work in underage cricket. I'm not really involved in underage cricket. I know that age fraud went on because when I played club cricket, I know there were players in my side that probably weren't the age that they told everyone they were. This has always gone on. But of course, underage cricket used to be a fairly amateur thing that didn't matter all that much. Yes, of course, you might get a first-class contract ahead of someone else if you're a little bit younger, but first-class contracts didn't really pay all that much money, right? So yes, you could go to the trouble of changing the age of your child to be able to get this situation, but when it comes down to it, there weren't that many people who were that interested in it, and it wasn't an issue. It's always happened, but it wasn't always a big deal. So what has changed? Underage cricket is now worth money, right? Which makes sense because there is a lot more money in cricket. There is a lot more professionalism. Even a first-class contract now is a very, very valuable thing. But of course, a first-class contract really leads more towards T20 contracts and franchise contracts and everything else. And that's where the real money is, right? So underage cricket wasn't always that important. Whereas right at the moment, it's never been more important. And of course, if there's money involved, then there's probably going to be fraud. Whether it's real fraud or not, I don't actually know what the legal definition is for each individual country. But age fraud is how it's always brought up to me. So I'm using that term. And of course, while we might be obsessed with cricket over other sports, it's worth noting that if you look at previous scandals in the NBA, one of my favorite ones was the Australian player Thon Maker, whose age seemed to change dramatically on draft night. In the end, I don't think it mattered all that much because he wasn't good enough to actually play consistently in the NBA anyway. But there we were. There's plenty of these stories in football as well, of a player who is reportedly 18, but actually looks like they're 26. Fans absolutely love all this sort of stuff. And to be honest, as we said before, they can be quite interesting stories, right? Too often, there is an element of racism to some of these stories, right? It is the foreigner coming in, so we can't trust their age. On top of that, there can also be an element of classism sometimes. because the idea that this player is so poor, we don't even know what stage they were born, and they could be any age at all. So you've always got to be careful when you're talking about age fraud. And you'll notice that unless it's crucial to some story I'm trying to tell, like Rashid Khan's career arc or something like that, I almost never talk about it just because I know how often these two things come up. So generally, we steer clear, except for the odd joke where it's well known that the player isn't actually the age that they're reported to be. But the money side is only one thing, right? It's also about the fans. Because if you come back to Vaibhav, one of the reasons his story is so incredible is because of his age. Like once you say a 14-year-old has made 100 in the IPL, it just completely blows your mind. And as fans, that story went all around the world. You didn't even need to be a cricket fan to have heard that. Like so many people I know who don't follow cricket at all contacted me to ask about Vaibhav. We love child prodigies. Sachin Tendulkar's story is talked about all the time. The age that he made his debut, how he played at the start, and everything else. And it is part of the romance. Of course, the thing with child prodigies is, for every one child prodigy, there is a lot of other people who are not. Let's call them the Ashrafals. And if you don't know who Mohammad Ashrafal is, go back and check his 100 against Australia at a very young age when playing for Bangladesh. Then, check the second thing that Ashrafal is known for, and it's nowhere near as good. Being good at a young age doesn't promise that you're going to be Sachin. It also doesn't mean you're going to end up as Ashrafal, but the pressures that you go under means it's much more likely to end up in a situation like Ashrafal where you make wrong decisions. It's really hard to be a professional athlete because you are making adult decisions at a very young age. If you're even younger still, you've got so many people around you. So child prodigies, as talented as they are, quite often just get absolutely exploited. But the truth is, when you look at Vaibhav, it doesn't matter if he's 14 or 16 or 17. I'm not even sure it would matter if he was 21 or 22. He's a young player doing something that senior players cannot do. He has already achieved the amazing thing. The age is almost irrelevant at a certain point, except for the fact that it's not because of this, and largely, and a little bit because of this. Because everyone wants to find the next Sachin Tendulkar. And so because of that, we got lots of different situations where a player's birthday is not correct. Now, I want to be really, really clear with this. There was an international player not that long ago who was playing for a franchise league who had a birthday, and they threw him a really nice party. They even got a special cake made. But this was really embarrassing for this player because he knew he wasn't the age that they said on the cake, and also he wasn't sure that that was his birthday. And so the whole thing was a little bit icky because his teammates really wanted to celebrate him and he kind of wanted to ignore the whole situation. And that particular player is not alone. In fact, a lot of players from that part of the world have a similar problem. I've said this before, if you go back and you have a look at the Shahid Afridi innings where he makes the quickest 100 in ODI history as a 16-year-old, you will see that it says on the screen, Shahid Afridi, 21. Is he 21? Is he 16? Again, a player doing that on debut, I don't think it really matters, but you can understand again why it matters to this narrative, the child prodigy thing. Shahid Afridi has now admitted openly in his book that he was not the age that he was said. But this brings us to this other point, which is registering births. Not all countries and not all regions within countries have the same regulations. So a lot of people in different parts of the world don't actually know their birthday, and they don't always know exactly the year they were born. It's a cultural thing. And that also links into the classism. Doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with these people. We have decided in the rest of the world that the actual day that you're born means a lot. Not every culture needs to care about that. It's just an arbitrary number. There are 4-year-olds more mature than 9-year-olds, right? Your age really doesn't tell you that much, but we get very obsessed with age in life in general. Forget about sport. And so it means that a lot of these players just don't know exactly when they were born. Then they end up being good cricketers. That's a very normal thing that happens a lot. And one of my favorite stories about all this is, of course, Misbah-ul-Haq. Early on in his career when he was playing, the journalists were asking a lot of questions about why this older player was playing for Pakistan. And at one stage, Yunus Khan said, oh yeah, the thing about Misbah-ul-Haq you need to know is that's his actual age, whereas most of us are a couple of years older than it actually says. This has been well known in Pakistan cricket for a very long time. Not all of this is age fraud. A lot of this is about the birth registry. But some of it is just about age fraud and an attempt by parents and family members and sometimes agents to be able to get more money. Teams are going to pay a lot more money for an 18-year-old who bowls 90 miles an hour than a 23-year-old. That's just facts. So at a certain point, it doesn't really matter, right? Whether it's age fraud or it's just about when you register your birth. It's a big problem that we don't know how old a lot of people are in cricket because we're so obsessed with numbers, not just runs, but age in this case. So is there a test to check someone's age? No, there is not. There is no accurate test. So all the people who are constantly complaining to me, what do they think anyone can do? There is no way to tell exactly how old a human being is. Because if this existed, we'd already know about it because money would have solved that problem, right? And so because of that, age fraud and the registering of birth will mean that there'll be lots of players within the cricket system that we just won't know the ages of. It's just going to be a very normal thing. And I know that because it's been a very normal thing for a long time. In fact, there's a guy called Mark Ridgway who played Shield cricket in Australia in the 90s and the 2000s. And the Final Word podcast have already talked about how he openly changed his age because he just thought that Tasmania wouldn't actually hire a seam bowler who was already in his early 30s, right? So Mark Ridgway went on to have a really good second career as a seam bowler because of all this, and his age didn't actually affect him at all. He bowled on for quite a few more years. And not only that, I would argue that perhaps one of the best and most important stories in the history of cricket, Basil D'Oliveira, is without any doubt an age fraud. Basil D'Oliveira could not play top-level cricket in South Africa because he was not white. And so because of that, he played for ages in lower level cricket. And then when he moved to the UK to play as a professional cricketer, he said his age was lower than what it actually was. There are different stories, and I don't think anyone will ever know exactly how much younger than he said he was, but it was probably 2 years. It might have been 3 years. It was possibly 5 years younger. But because of that, Basil D'Oliveira goes on to play Test cricket. And because he played Test cricket, he played a part in the fact that South Africa were no longer allowed to play Test cricket, and also in the overall bad press about this little thing called apartheid. Basil D'Oliveira changing his age actually affected global politics, and it might be one of the most important things that has ever happened in cricket. Was it age fraud? Absolutely yes. Was it spectacular? Without any doubt. Was it brilliant for cricket? Again, yes. After all, age is just a number.
Brian Lara used pot plants to work on his placement. John Wright glued his glove to his bat. Sachin Tendulkar dug up practice pitches. Tatenda Taibu cut the top off his bat. Claire Taylor used a hockey grip. Steve Smith was from tennis. Dean Jones would call phantom runs. And Victor Trumper turned the nets into a war zone to survive. The best batters in the world do whatever they have to make runs. We have told their stories in our new book, The Art of Batting.